Hello, world, and welcome once again. That was creepy. No, I'm just going to keep going with it. Welcome once again to Got a Minute More, the podcast extension of our Got a Minute movie review show, which you can find on our website, gotaminutereviews.com, or on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all the socials except Twitter, because Twitter is a nightmare. Just look for Got a Minute Reviews on any of those platforms. We got a lot to talk about in this show, eh, Kevin?
Yeah, we got, as we were just saying before we came on air here, we got beef.
We got beef. That might be the theme of this episode. So let's start with a lack of beef, a complete lack of beef. Your 100 movies bucket list project. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so one of my best friends from work, a person who I hate with every fiber of my being, Laura Matt.
Hi, Laura.
Bought me a Christmas present. It was a 100 movies to see before you die bucket list. It's like a scratch off with movie posters underneath each of the movie titles.
Was this your Secret Santa thing at work?
No, it wasn't. It was separate. We're just,
okay. This was separate from that.
Yeah, we just do gift exchanges every year. So I had seen most of the movies on the list because I'm a movie fan, and most of them are movies that any movie fan has seen.
Yeah, pretty mainstream for the most part.
Yeah, so instead of taking it as like, oh, let's just do like, here's a reason to go see like 6 or 7 movies, I decided that I was going to go back and use it as a reason to rewatch a lot of these, because a lot of these are like, aren't the kind of movies that you would necessarily go back and watch again.
Okay.
Some are. The most recent one that I just wrote is Pulp Fiction. I go back and watch that fairly frequently. But some of these, like spoiler alert, the next movie on the list is Amelie.
Oh, yes.
That's not a movie I think I would ever go back and revisit.
You know what? I actually would. I think I bought it a couple of times now, like DVD and Blu-ray, so...
Yeah,
that's just me, though.
Were it not for this list, I don't think I would just go back on my own. It's not the kind of movie that I would just go back and watch in my spare time. So
fair enough.
It's a reason to go back and revisit some of these, and then also a reason to see some of the movies on the list that I hadn't seen. An example is the third movie on the poster was City of God, right. A very famous Brazilian movie that I had always heard about, but I had never actually watched for whatever reason. And I loved that. So
yeah, fantastically made movie. I was actually watching that one sort of sympathetically with you, from a distance. Yeah, man, I'd never seen the whole thing, I should say. I'd never seen the whole thing from start to finish. So, that was quite the revelation, actually. I was surprised.
Yeah, so when I decided to do that, obviously the natural progression was, I should do something with this for the website. And so I'm not going to like edit and voice reviews for all of these. I'm just going to go through and write a little blurb on each one as I watch them. For the most part, I'm just going to go in order on the poster unless there's extenuating circumstances. For example, I think either the last or second to last movie on the poster is Spirited Away, which I have never seen before.
Oh, there you go.
And is playing at the Cinesphere here in the city on the biggest IMAX screen in the country.
Oh, that's right.
In a couple months, I believe. So I will definitely be doing my first screening of Spirited Away at that screening.
Yeah, if you're in Toronto and you're listening to this, check out the Cinesphere's website. Just go to Ontario Place's website. That's where the Cinesphere is located. They've got an incredible roster of movies that are playing there. A lot of things that you would never suspect that you would see on a big IMAX screen like that. So definitely check them out. Hey, I should get the sponsorship from them.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think
that would be amazing.
We should get all the money now, I think.
If they would only heat that walkway across the water, man. Shit is cold. Anyway, yeah, so your 100 movies bucket list, we can find that on gotaminutereviews.com. 4 reviews up as we post this. So just 96 movies to go, Kev. A small load for you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun homework.
Before we get into the big news of the week, which is the 2019 Oscar nominations, we're going to go hard on that. Let's go soft on Glass, because we got beef.
I mean, you can say we're going soft on glass. I'm not going soft on glass.
I just mean, so we'll go soft as in. We're not going to spend too much time on this piece of shit movie.
Yeah, this is really disappointing. I said to someone the day after I watched it, the movie it most closely resembles to me as a movie-going experience is Prometheus, which was a movie I was super, super excited for. It was, the Alien franchise is one of my favorite franchises in all of film, and Ridley Scott was coming back. He was going to make this Alien prequel. It all sounded great. And then when I was in the theater, I was just like, what the fuck is this? Like, how is this the movie we got?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing here. Unbreakable is my favorite M. Night Shyamalan movie.
You and I have that in common.
And Split was great.
Yeah, we both love Split.
And it seemed like M. Night Shyamalan had at least developed some kind of idea for this. And then this isn't just a bad movie, and it isn't just boring, and it isn't just the whole movie basically feels like a giant fuck you for liking Unbreakable or liking the franchise coming up to this.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Just seriously disappointing in every way. You know what the thing is too, and you could tell that Split was written ages ago, back when Night actually had a grasp on story and characters and actual entertainment. Glass clearly is current M. Night Shyamalan, who has no clue and no business doing any of those things.
Yeah, it's for his filmography, the movie it most closely resembles to me is Lady in the Water.
Yes.
Just a giant head up its own ass, thinks it's way more clever than it actually is. And if you hear him talk about, not this movie, but if you hear him talk in interviews about making Lady in the Water, a lot of the same things that he talks about there are very apparent in Glass as well, where he kind of abandoned the logical structure of film or broke all the rules that a screenplay should break. And there's something borderline noble about that as a concept, but some of the basics are the basics because they're just required when you're making a film. And this is the ultimate example where, say what you will about the structure of the movie, say what you will about the colossal clusterfuck that is the ending and the absolute train wreck that is the end of this movie. The most damning sin on this movie is it's so fucking boring. It is agonizing to watch. And
especially in the second act, yes.
Yeah, it just felt like a giant fuck you. It was like the opening 20 minutes felt like the movie we wanted to see.
Right.
And then there was an hour of just boring nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so pumped for that opening, and man, did it ever just let me down after that.
Yeah, so then there's an hour of nothing, and then 30 minutes of just fuck you for ever having enjoyed any of this.
Like every bit of action is so poorly staged and shot. It feels so small. It feels so small for something that should have been so much bigger, and was pretending to be something so much bigger as well. Pretending to be this high art superhero movie. Everything just felt so cheap and small in it, especially in that last act.
Yeah, and I really wish that I didn't hate this movie as much as I did, not only because I'm a fan of the other movies in the trilogy, I guess we're calling it now.
Do we have to call it that?
I guess so. But also because there is a good concept for a movie here, taking the superhero movie and deconstructing it entirely.
Right.
Is a good idea in theory. Sure. And in better hands, like, we talked in the first podcast about my affinity for Drew Goddard's writing style. Right. I feel like if Drew Goddard tried to make this movie would have been incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead, we got this.
Instead, we got post Avatar, the Last Airbender, M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, so I mean, the bottom line is just any reports that you have heard after Split, or The Village. Some people wrote this, and I hated The Village, but especially after Split, people were saying, "Oh, M. Night Shyamalan's back." Well, no, he's not.
No, definitely not. Like you say, that's clearly old Night before he just completely lost his mind.
Yep.
As you say, up his own ass, essentially. You know what? Enough of that. Oh, and by the way, keep the last 3 letters of the title. That's about all you need. Let's move on to the Oscars because once again, we got beef.
Yeah, we do. We have lots of beef here.
So much beef. Let's start though. Just a little recap of the 2 front runners for Best Picture. I don't know if they're necessarily the 2 Best Picture front runners, but 2 of the front runners. The 2 films that picked up the most nominations this year, 10 apiece for Roma and The Favourite, both of which you and I liked, one of which we clearly liked a lot more than the other, and that was Yorgos Lanthimos' The Favourite. Roma, Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress for Yalitza Aparicio, Best Supporting Actress for Marina de Tavira, Original Screenplay, Cinematography, Foreign Language Film, Sound Mixing, Sound Editing, Production Design. 6 of those are Cuarón alone. Which is absolutely insane. And The Favourite pretty closely matches that, except it picks up 2 nominations for supporting actress. Rachel Weisz and Emma Stone both get nominated, as they should. It's also in for original screenplay, cinematography for Robbie Ryan, film editing, production design, and costume design, because, of course, it's a period piece, and every period piece that gets made in a calendar year gets a nomination for costume design. That's just how that works. But let's talk about the Best Picture category and where the beef comes in with that. Kevin, why don't you take this one?
Sure. So, okay. There are a few, such as If Beale Street Could Talk. They only nominated 8. I just don't understand why, if you have the slot for 10, why? I mean, If Beale Street Could Talk got several nominations. I don't understand why it doesn't get a Best Picture nomination here.
It absolutely should. It's an excellent movie. I don't know what that says, that you're not willing to nominate 10 movies if you've got 10 slots. Like this, you've only put 8 in that Best Picture category. Does that mean the 2 movies that you didn't choose are just not good? Like, I don't understand what that says about those 2 movies that could have been in there that aren't.
Yeah, it's very odd. And then as well, there are just a bunch of movies on that list that I don't like as much as apparently the Academy does or other people do.
So let's run down the list here. We've got Black Panther, Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favourite, Green Book, Roma, A Star is Born, and Vice. Which ones would you take off of that list?
So Bohemian Rhapsody, I don't think it has any business being in a Best Picture nominee. We talked about this on a previous podcast. It's problematic for a bunch of reasons, and I just it's got great Queen music and it's got a great performance from Rami Malek. Outside of that, it's fine. It's a fine movie, I guess. That's problematic.
It's a very by the numbers biopic, right? Like this is the perfect Academy movie, really. Let's face it. And I understand why it would be nominated, but this is what we talked about originally. Was that our fear was that the actual history, would get ignored, and that this fake history would be put on a pedestal and therefore become the real Queen history. I think this is a step towards that.
Well, on that front as well, we talked last year when we did this podcast with Michael Goldberg over at Bar 42. We did a podcast about this, and I said every single year there seems to be one Best Picture nominee that will, for whatever reason, people will decide they don't like and is super problematic and they wish wasn't nominated. Last year was 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Right.
This year it's Green Book, and this year I am firmly on the side of the people who think it's problematic.
Right. This is another one. This is one that I actually haven't seen yet. This is the only one in this list that I haven't seen. So, I'm going to have to leave that to you to decide, basically, or to decipher, I should say.
Yeah, there's just a whole bunch of problems. It's a very bad version of a race relation type movie.
Right.
I don't know what the point of it was. I don't like the way it's written. I don't like the way it views either of the characters, given the way they're established. I don't like the way they develop their relationship. I don't like the way other black people in the movie view Mahershala Ali's character, because Mahershala Ali plays a classical pianist in the movie who's going on tour. And the concept of the movie is the Green Book is a famous book that black people would give each other before they went traveling in the Deep South as like, here are places that are safe to go.
Right.
And here are places that you'll run into problems. And so if that's the basis of the movie, that's a very loaded concept, because that book is so important to so many people and it's genuinely a part of their culture. And it has almost nothing to do with the movie. I think like Viggo Mortensen pulls it out once for like 30 seconds. That's the only instance of that book being in the movie. And when Mahershala Ali's character goes to these hotels that are black friendly, he'll encounter black people who just hate him because he's educated and well spoken. It's just a lot of very bad stereotypes. And yeah, I really, really had a problem with the screenplay for it, and I don't understand why it's nominated here. And it's gotten so much attention. I mean, if it won the Golden Globe for Best Comedy somehow, the
Golden Globes. There's a whole like 6-episode We Got Beef series on that coming. I'm sure.
Yeah, I have beef, like infinity beef with that, but and since I just kind of cued myself with using the word infinity, I apologize up front. But Black Panther being nominated for Best Picture is ridiculous.
Yeah,
it just is. It's distantly the third best superhero movie of the year, behind Infinity War and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It is a average Marvel movie, I would say.
Yep.
I knew it was coming. I don't even necessarily have a problem with it. It is ridiculous, and it is worth noting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with the idea of a superhero movie being nominated. I'm actually glad. This is the whole idea of expanding to 10 pictures in the Best Picture category, was to include movies like this. You remember one of the first ones that was similar to this, I think it was in the very first year, actually, that they had the option for 10 Best Picture nominees, was District 9. Which is straight up sci-fi action film with some really great racial overtones as well to it. So it was a sort of a parable of segregation, or apartheid rather, in South Africa, right?
Yeah, and as well, the entire impetus for going to 10 movies being nominated was the absolute outrage that The Dark Knight didn't get nominated for anything the year that it was made.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I just, like, you could have done, there's so many movies that I'm just like, okay, so Hereditary was both of our favorite movie of the year. Right. And we think it's the best movie of last year, and it's not nominated. I knew it wasn't going to get nominated. I knew it didn't have a chance. I thought the best chance was maybe Toni Collette, but I didn't even think she really had a chance.
Yeah, I recall I actually did have her listed as a potential nominee. I thought she might be a dark horse and sneak in there in the Best Actress category, but to no avail.
Yeah, so like that's a whole separate discussion, because this isn't the first time we've been down this road. A couple years ago, The Babadook was the best reviewed movie of whatever year it came out now. I can't remember off the top of my head.
15 or 16, something like that.
and it didn't get a sniff of anything. It Follows didn't get a sniff of anything. This is just an ongoing trend where they're just not going to accept certain movies. But even this year, like, there are movies that they should have been accepting of that don't find their way here. Like, First Reformed is a much better movie than so many movies on this list.
Absolutely.
Leave No Trace is better than so many movies on this list.
I won't argue that.
I personally haven't seen it, but from everything I've heard, Paddington 2 maybe should have been considered in this slot.
You know where I stand on that one. It's just so much fun. But that's another category. That's another category of movies that does not get the nominations anywhere it should. It's those family movies. You mentioned 2008 when The Dark Knight came out and the outrage about that movie not being nominated. You know which movie picked up the Best Picture award for the LA Film Critics, the Chicago Film Critics, and a couple of other sort of local film critics associations? WALL-E.
Yeah.
WALL-E was the Critics' Choice in however many different American cities. It was on basically everybody's list. All those local film critics associations. Was a nominee for Best Picture at least, but it picked up in some of the major cities in the U.S. It picked up that Best Picture award over The Dark Knight and over all the other things that beat it out in the end. And again, was not nominated as Best Picture.
Yeah, WALL-E is also incredible. It's trite at this point to keep going down this road, but you just wish that they would have a better.
Well, I don't think it is trite to go down that road because they're the ones who tried to introduce the category of Best Popular Movie.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it's clearly on their radar that they are missing some fantastic movies that just happen to be more mainstream, right? It's clearly on their radar. And of course, the outrage of that decision of creating that separate category was a whole other 6-episode arc of We Got Beef. But, I mean, there's so much beef here. But like, it's just, they don't ever get it right. They do not ever get it right, and they can't bring themselves, for whatever reason, the Academy, whatever, call it snobbery, call it elitism, they will never nominate a horror movie. They will never nominate a family film. I am shocked that they nominated a superhero movie and that they managed to get the superhero movie wrong that they chose.
Okay, so here's the thing about the Black Panther nominee. Everyone is going to point to the fact that a superhero movie finally got a nomination.
Right.
I don't think that's what this is.
No.
This sounds harsh. This is pandering. This is after years of the Oscars so white controversy, we can't not nominate this.
Right.
That's all it is. And so
I cannot argue with that at all.
I refuse.
And I saw that movie 3 times in theaters, and I have no desire to see it on this Best Picture list. I saw it 3 times because I liked it. I enjoyed it. And plus there was nothing else out at the time that it came out. But yeah, I really enjoyed the movie, and I have absolutely no desire to see it on this list because it is not that good. It does not belong with these other films.
Yeah, I enjoyed Black Panther as well, but basically what I'm saying is I refuse to give them credit for finally nominating a superhero movie because I don't think that's what this is.
No, I agree with you.
So yeah, and as I said, it's not just not nominating popular movies or movies from certain genres. It's just how is If Beale Street Could Talk not nominated? Like, right. I just don't understand that. You have 2 vacant slots and you still won't give one to If Beale Street Could Talk? How?
It's
Why?
One of the best romantic movies I've seen in ages. I adore that movie. I was so into the chemistry between the 2 leads. Here you have an opportunity to reshape that identity, the Oscar so white thing, by nominating a movie that is about 2 black people who are absolutely in love and who have to overcome these incredible obstacles, including, race-based police profiling and that sort of thing. And you completely ignore that movie in the Best Picture category, at least. It's clearly on their radar because it does have a couple of nominations. I think it's in there for screenplay, is it not?
I think so, yeah. I think that's
and
right.
Certainly, yeah, adapted screenplay and supporting actress as well as score.
Yep.
Supporting actress Regina King, she should absolutely win it. By the way, she was phenomenal. She was so good. There's only a couple of scenes that she's central in, but she was absolutely brilliant in that. But that's a whole other category. I'm getting off topic here. Back to the beef.
Yeah, more beef.
The beef is getting cold.
Yeah, it's staggering how often, like, First Reformed or Leave No Trace or, Eighth Grade. How is Eighth Grade not nominated for this?
Yeah.
It's staggering how often and it's not just because everyone points to it as like, oh, there's Oscar bait, and there's a whole lot of Oscar bait movies, by the way, this year that didn't get anywhere near any of this.
True.
I just saw one fairly recently with On the Basis of Sex, the Ruth Bader Ginsburg movie.
Yep.
Which is clearly that's what they're going for, but
especially when they released it.
Yeah, it's just bizarre. Like, I would have hoped at some point they would have gotten the message, and it would have been like, what movie does what it's trying to do the best?
Right.
Because that's really all this should be.
Yes.
It shouldn't be like, what movie fits our mold of whatever. So, like, if a horror movie is the best executed movie of the year, then it's the best executed movie of the year.
And the same thing with last year. Blade Runner 2049 did not receive a sniff in the best picture category because it's a sci-fi movie.
Yeah,
another genre of movies that's just never going to get that kind of a look. It's sad, and you're absolutely right. That's the way it should be, and the Oscars needs a serious overhaul in the best picture category. That's all there is to that. Let's move on because there's so many other opportunities for beef. I think the director category is actually pretty good. You've got Spike Lee for Black Klansman, Pavlovsky for Cold War, Yorgos Lanthimos for The Favorite, Alfonso Cuarón for Roma, Adam McKay for Vice. I don't see any opportunity for beef here.
So I've seen some people trending that once again, no female directors were nominated.
Right.
I've mentioned Leave No Trace a couple times now on this podcast. Deborah Granick directed Leave No Trace. You could probably have swapped her for like Adam McKay.
Sure.
I think that probably would have been fine with me. Outside of that, not really. No, I think it's fine.
I can see that. Leave No Trace is a really, really nicely directed movie. It's beautiful. What else we got here? Let's go through the rest of the big six. We've done the first two, obviously, picture and director. Well, let's go to the acting categories. Best actor. Christian Bale as Vice, as Dick Cheney in Vice, Bradley Cooper in A Star Is Born, Willem Dafoe at Eternity's Gate, Rami Malek for Bohemian Rhapsody, Viggo Mortensen for Green Book. There's some beef opportunities here.
Yeah, I have a pretty glaring beef. Before these nominees were announced, I would have sworn up and down that Ethan Hawke was going to win Best Actor this year.
Mm-hmm.
And for First Reformed, and he is somehow not even nominated.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
And at this point, clearly your front runner is Rami Malek for Bohemian Rhapsody. I think the only other person who could possibly take this is Christian Bale. He's getting a lot of notice for Vice. And I think rightly so. He delivers a fantastic performance. His physical transformation obviously is a sign of his dedication to his craft. But I don't think that should really weigh in. Get it weigh in because he got fat. He is just completely lost in that role. Like, you do not see Christian Bale in that.
I am personally prepared for the crushing disappointment and rage I will feel when Green Book runs wild at these awards. So
you think Viggo's going to take this, eh?
It wouldn't surprise me if Viggo Mortensen wins this.
I mean, again, I haven't seen it, so I really can't say anything. But yeah, it would probably bother me if Rami Malek didn't win, because despite all of our problems that we had with Bohemian Rhapsody, all the beef. By the way, I propose a drinking game. We can start now. Every time we say beef, take a shot, because even, halfway through this podcast, you're still going to get pretty ripped. Lead actress, Yalitza Aparicio is nominated for Roma. She's fantastic. I'm just going to say that right up front. Glenn Close, who won the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Drama. The Wife. Olivia Colman, The Favorite, my favorite. Lady Gaga for A Star Is Born, and Melissa McCarthy for Can You Ever Forgive Me, another movie that I haven't seen.
Yeah, this is probably the closest to what I would have nominated. I mean, obviously, I just said I definitely would have given a nomination to Toni Collette in Hereditary.
Absolutely.
If I had my way. You could probably make a pretty strong case for Elsie Fisher here, maybe instead of Melissa McCarthy.
Right.
But outside of that, that looks pretty good. And hopefully Olivia Colman wins.
Supporting actor, we're back to beef. Mahershala Ali for Green Book. Adam Driver for Black Klansman. Sam Elliott for A Star Is Born. Richard E. Grant in Can You Ever Forgive Me? And Sam Rockwell for Vice, where he played George W. Bush. I liked his performance, but it came off as sort of ham-handed, a little goofy, and a little intentionally goofy to me.
Yeah, so I'll actually counter that and say I think he's fine as a nominee here.
Sure.
I don't really have much of a problem with this. I think that looks fine to me.
Yeah, fair enough. Supporting actress, you've got Amy Adams for Vice as Lynn Chaney, Marina de Tavera for Roma. She's the matriarch of the house in which Yalitza Aparicio is the maid. Regina King, I already talked about her. She would be my favorite for this category if Beale Street could talk. And that's even after having seen The Favorite, which our last two nominees are from, Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz.
Yeah, I haven't seen Beale Street yet. But so mine would be one of Emma Stone or Rachel Weisz. I honestly can't decide between the two of them, so I don't know. Can they co-win it?
Yeah, just call it a tie. All right, I mean, so that's the big six categories right there. Animated short, I think, is probably an absolute lock for Domee. I just want to give her a little shout out because she's from Toronto, and of course, you guys probably know at this point that we record this podcast in Toronto. Bao, it's the short, the Pixar short that ran in front of The Incredibles 2 this summer. 7 minutes, all the emotions, literally all the emotions. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. It was one of the most shocking things I've ever seen in terms of a short, anyway, and one of the most emotional movies I've ever seen in 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's funny that Pixar gets the rap as like the animated feature is just their lockdown. It feels like animated short is the thing they do even better than animated feature.
Agreed.
It's every year when they release their movie, there will be an animated short off the top of them. And they're basically always absolutely ridiculously great.
Yeah, and I mean, we know that that's also how they sort of graduate their people from animators or from story writers or whatever to directors. So Domee, probably the next big thing at Pixar. Good for her. We'll skip over the adapted screenplay category. There's nothing too shocking in there, I don't think. But the original screenplay category, a beef.
Yeah, original screenplay, I do have a beef. I just explained, I think Green Book, like, the big problem is the screenplay. If you want to give Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali credit for their performances, great. But I do not think that screenplay is good, especially in a year where you have screenplays like Eighth Grade as an example. It's just staggering to me that isn't nominated, and we're back to, here's Green Book, here's its terrible, like, very basic cliche bad version of race relations.
The beef fest just continues. Let's move on to cinematography. Cinematography nominees here: Cold War, Lucas Zal, The Favorite, Robbie Ryan. One weird little thing in that movie, the use of the fisheye lens. I'm not entirely sure, but the rest of the movie looked phenomenal. Never Look Away is Caleb Deschanel. Roma, Alfonso Cuarón, again, abandoned by his usual cinematographer, Emmanuel Lubezki. It was just a scheduling conflict, but Cuarón, who used to shoot movies himself, picks it up and gets a nomination. And Matthew Libatique for A Star Is Born.
Yeah, so there are two pretty glaring omissions to me on that list. James Laxton for If Beale Street Could Talk.
Yes.
And Linus Sandgren for First Man.
Yeah, can we talk about how good Linus Sandgren is? I mean, you go from the gorgeously lit, pastel-colored, bright, beautiful La La Land with its crazy dream sequence at the end, and that one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen shot on film, to this incredibly grounded, 1960s kind of weathered look that he gives First Man, and then switches to IMAX cameras on the moon, and it's just literally breathtaking. I've said this a few times now on this podcast.
Yeah, both of those seem like they should be locks. I don't care which one of those, outside of probably Alfonso Cuarón, probably needs to stay. Outside of that, you can probably get rid of any of the rest of them for those two, because those two are better than all the rest of those.
Probably best to say, or safe to say rather, that Alfonso Cuarón wins for that. And rightly so. Roma's a gorgeously shot movie. But yeah, definitely a couple of missing nominees. Sorry, go ahead.
I will say some of the nominations that it got, actually, there are, things like best sound mixing, I think it's nominated for.
Yeah.
I kind of get the feeling that Roma is going to end up cleaning up here.
Yeah, it certainly feels that way. I can't think, well, I don't know, maybe one or two sequences in Roma certainly deserving of the sound mixing and sound editing. Let's say the riot sequence. And actually, I really liked the sound. I recall thinking this too when I was watching the movie, and that one tracking shot where the young girls or the young women are running through the city going to see the movie. I remember the city feeling very vibrant, Mexico City feeling very vibrant and alive in the surround sound speakers that I have at home. So I guess, there's a couple of spots there where it sort of is worth those kind of technical nominations.
Yeah, and I'm not even necessarily saying that it doesn't deserve those nominations. I'm just saying the fact that it's there for all of them means it's probably going to wind up cleaning up pretty big here.
Yeah, it's not the kind of movie that normally gets nominated in those categories unless there is like an impending sweep. So
yeah,
probably a fair call on that. All right, let's move on to foreign language film here. Kevin, you got beef?
Yeah, this might be arguably my biggest beef of the entire thing.
Oh, really?
I am very glad that Shoplifters got nominated. I'm a big fan of that movie. I only saw it fairly recently, but I really enjoyed it. Even more so than that, though, South Korea has never had a Best Foreign Language Film nomination. I think it's over 30 now on its attempts. And Burning, if I could go back and re-record our top 10 movies of the year list, Burning would be probably fairly substantially inside my top 10.
Oh, wow. Okay. Steven Yeun?
Yeah, Steven Yeun from The Walking Dead. It is really, really incredible. And the fact that didn't get them nominated, and the fact that that's been shunned by everything here, is a damn shame.
Is it to do with genre? Is it to do with,
it is,
what we were talking about earlier?
I assume it's genre. Yeah, it kind of like, it starts out feeling like it's the type of movie that the Academy is definitely going to be receptive to, and then it kind of takes a turn and it isn't. But it's absolutely incredible. I just highly recommend it as a movie. Like, if you're listening to this, please go watch it. It's incredible.
I will. And then finally, another cat. This is the one that I thought you would have had the most beef with. It's certainly one of the ones that's highest on my beef list. I'm just really trying to get people drunk at this point. It's Best Original Score. And we've got, before we really get into the beef, let me first mention the nominees here, okay? Terrence Blanchard gets nominated for BlacKkKlansman. Ludwig Göransson for Black Panther. Both solid choices. Black Panther, I think, was a really good score. Ludwig Göransson, I really liked his sort of fusion of like African plus orchestral music. If Beale Street Could Talk, Nicholas Britell, not so sure that should be on the list. Isle of Dogs, Alexander Desplat, that should definitely be on the list because I love that. And Mary Poppins Returns, Mark Shaman. Now, before we get to the beef, I just want to mention Mark Shaman is nominated twice for Oscars this year, Best Original Score and Best Original Song. He's the composer of Mary Poppins Returns. He is up for the coveted EGOT. If you're not aware of what the EGOT is, it's a collection of awards in American entertainment. the Emmy, the Grammy, the Oscar, and the Tony. He's already picked up the Emmy. He picked that up in 1992. That's for television. It's for a medley that he wrote for Billy Crystal, who was hosting the Oscars that year. In 2003, he picked up the Grammy and the Tony for the movie adaptation of Hairspray, the stage adaptation of the John Waters movie Hairspray. He just needs the Oscar to get it, the EGOT rather, which is sort of the Grand Slam. And if he does, he will be the 16th person. Only 15 others have ever picked up the EGOT before. So good luck, Mark Shaman. You're going to need it because you're definitely not going to win that category.
Yeah, that's a very cool story. Now, let me just shit all over the fact that he's nominated here because
shitty beef.
That's a terrible nomination. This is the category where this is the only category where this is true this year. But this year, I definitely feel like I could take all 5 of those out and still have a better. If I nominated 5 movies and I couldn't use the 5 they've nominated here, I feel like I could do better.
Fair enough. So you're throwing in.
Yes.
I know one of them for sure is Tom York of Radiohead fame, who did the score for Suspiria.
Yeah, and also Suspirium belongs in Best Original Song. It's one of the movies he made from that soundtrack.
Yeah, shocking that that's not nominated too, because I do know that song. I just haven't heard the score because I haven't seen the movie yet.
So yeah, that score is incredible. The score for Annihilation is incredible. There's just this one I really don't understand. I mean, I understand Alexander Desplat. I haven't seen Isle of Dogs because Wes Anderson kind of isn't my thing. And
this is a peak Wes Anderson movie, as I said to you offline.
Yeah, but I understand him being nominated because Desplat has been kind of like the darling of this category now for several years in a row. So
absolutely.
It makes total sense that he would be there. Like you said, Black Panther probably belongs there. This is a perfectly fine selection. Yeah, and then from there you just have like so many other options that are so much better than the movies on this list. We mentioned already Tom York with the Suspiria soundtrack. Jeff Barrow and Ben Salisbury for the Annihilation soundtrack, which is absolutely incredible as well.
Jeff Barrow of one of my favorite groups of all time, Portishead, the English trip hop outfit.
Yeah, and then Justin Hurwitz for First Man, which is a ridiculously great soundtrack that also just gets nothing.
Listen, anytime you can sneak a theremin into a soundtrack and not make it sound goofy, not make it sound like Plan 9 from outer space, you done good.
Yeah, it's just this is the category that is the most blatantly wrong on this list. This is nowhere near right.
Yeah, I mean, I've long had problems with the way that the scores that the Academy chooses, but and especially the songs. Usually the songs are the worst, but this year, for whatever reason, the score is just particularly awful. Yeah,
this is a really bad list of nominees, and I don't understand. I don't understand some of these nominees. Like, I don't understand what you heard in. Like, this sounds overly harsh. Like, I don't want to shit on some of these, but like, Black Klansman's score, like, I didn't even notice it when I was watching it. Like,
yeah, it's not memorable, and I like that movie a lot. I had it in my top 10 this year. But the score doesn't stand out to me at all. Some of the music choices do, because I remember there being good music selection in that movie.
Yeah,
it's from an era that I kind of enjoy as well, like 70s soul and R&B and funk and that. There's some really good stuff in there. But the actual soundtrack, I can't remember a damn note of it, honestly.
Yeah, I don't understand how they managed to fuck this up this badly.
And fuck it up they did. Beef. Major.
Yeah.
Major beef.
Real intense beef.
All right. I mean, any more beef you got to air here, Kevin? I mean, we've gone through most of the major categories at this point. Oh, and by the way, I should say, too, as a fan of Black Klansman, congratulations to Spike Lee for finally picking up his first nomination for Best Director and for Best Picture as well. It's hard to believe that with a career as storied as his, certainly one that started as strong as his did, that this is the first time he's ever been nominated for Best Director and that one of his movies has been nominated for Best Picture. Loved BlacKkKlansman. I know you didn't get as much out of it as I did, but you got to recognize the achievement. Somebody who has actually won a Lifetime Achievement Award, didn't he? He was given an honorary Oscar in any case.
I think so. Yeah,
a couple of years ago, I think it was 2016. So good for him getting back in the game and coming out on top with this movie.
Yeah, I have one more little shout out. I guess I'll close on here. It's one more major snub, just to me personally. The visual effects department. I don't know how Aquaman isn't winning that. I just don't.
I mean, there were a lot of sharks and a lot of crabs.
There were a lot of things, and it all looked pretty seamless. Even their hair, like waving in the water, as they're supposed to be underwater. Like visual effects wise, it's a staggering achievement.
Yeah, for sure.
I also like the movie enough, but like as a actual visual effects exercise, it's really staggering.
I got beef with that movie, so I'm not going to say anything more. But I'm really happy that First Man's effects were in there as well, because they're subtle, right? They're a lot more subtle than, the typical superhero movie, Avengers Infinity War. Obviously, Christopher Robin, with as many animated characters as it is, it's not a very good movie. It's a nice movie. There's nothing really wrong with it, but the animation on the characters was top notch and it looks seamless. I probably would have put Paddington 2 in there, but again, we already know where I stand with that. Ready Player One, phenomenal special effects, and Solo: A Star Wars story. I mean, it's a $200 million movie. They're not going to fuck up the special effects. So, but you're right. I didn't even notice Aquaman was absent from that. Mm-hmm. Again, massive snubs. Beef everywhere. And I believe that ends the Beeftacular special that is Beef Fest 2019. We'll revisit the Oscars when they inevitably pick the wrong films for the actual awards. Obviously, these are just the nominees. They're bound to fuck it up again, even from these lists.
Beef Fest 2019 Part 2. Join us when the Academy Awards are actually announced, and we come back to yell about how they fucked that up.
All right, that's it for us. Make sure you check out Kevin's 100 movies bucket list reviews. There's some really, really good stuff on there. Great work, Kev, so far, bud.
Oh, thanks, pal.
And, of course, watch us, as usual, on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Got a Minute Reviews is where you find us on all of those platforms. GotAMinuteReviews.com as well. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.